What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Big Five Pod, episode number 91. And Cope, I'm going to introduce you in a second. People know who you are, but we are joined today by a very special guest, and that would be St. Joe's associate head coach and Philadelphia's very own Justin Scott. Justin, how's it going?
Great, man. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here. How you guys doing?
Absolutely. We're doing all right. I can't speak for Cope, but I mean, I've been pretty busy myself. I work for the Philadelphia Union, so we have just had a ton of games lately. But Cope, how about you?
Yeah, we're doing well. Summer feels like it's coming to an end. We're going to get some college football next week, Kyle, and then we're going to move into football season. And then soon enough, it'll be college basketball season. And how about today, Kyle? First ever coach we've had on in the Big
That's
Five.
right.
So
Oh,
big
wow.
milestone here. So big thank you to Coach Scott for joining us and finally being the first coach that
Wow,
had
91
on. So
episodes in, just getting a coach on.
yeah, took a while.
Yes. Well, we did go the first 48 without a guest at all, which was pretty crazy. We went our whole first season without a guest. So
Got it.
uh yeah. So this is very special for us. So we very much appreciate you coming on, Coach. And we're gonna get into it. Cope, I know you wanted to ask something off the bat here.
Yeah. So, Coach, to get us started, I do want to talk about transfer portal. I want to talk about NIL, and I know that's probably going to bore you a while because I'm sure that's all you hear in the offseason. You probably just can't wait to start playing games after hearing about this for so many months. But I want to start with recruiting. Everything I read about you, everything I hear about you from talking to people, there's a common theme, and it is that you are one of the best recruiters, not only in the city, this area, but really nationally. So, as much as NIL is big in recruiting in college basketball now, with how good of a recruiter you are, the relationship element, besides the money, besides, cars and sponsorships and stuff, like how important is that relationship element right now? And what makes you so good at connecting to young players and getting people to come to St. Joseph's?
Definitely. First and foremost, thanks for the compliment. Don't know if I will put myself, one of the best in the country, but it's great to be viewed in that regard. Um, yeah, like you said, the relationships are always going to be the key, you know. Yeah, NIL factors into it, playing time, a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, you need players, you need families, and you need people close to the players and the families to trust you, and that comes through relationships, genuine relationships. So, I've been blessed to, be involved in sports and basketball my whole life, which has allowed me to meet a lot of people, which has also been an avenue and way to help, as I've progressed through my coaching career, with recruiting, because usually there's always somebody close to somebody with a recruit that, I might have had a prior relationship or prior dealings with. So, again, the relationships are the key, and realizing, what relationships around prospects are key to them, and trying to really tap into those and, you know, knowing that those are going to be the most influential people in a student athlete's probably decision, and knowing how to get to the people close to them and making them feel like they're involved in the process and they trust you, and things of that nature. So, I just pride myself on, trying to be a guy that like most people like, keeping it real. I think my age and youthfulness, helps and being able to relate to a lot of the guys that we recruit. So, you know, it's always going to be about the relationships, man. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Hmm. So I
Absolutely.
have one more question before Kyle, I kick it over to you. So speaking of that, it's always about the relationships. Now with the portal,
Yeah,
guys that you previously recruited, it's like those are still very important as well. And that became very prevalent this year when you guys were able to get Derek Simpson to
yeah, no
transfer in.
doubt. No doubt.
So, guy that you recruited out of high school goes to Rutgers. He spends 2 years there. He puts his name in the transfer portal. How does that process work? You almost have to re-recruit a guy. Were you still very familiar with each other? Like, how quickly did that process develop to get him on Hawk Hill?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about Derek Simpson specifically, we were Derek's first offer, when he was in ninth grade. So the depth of relationship with Derek and the Simpson family, was pretty deep. So you talk about you offer a kid in ninth grade and, you're recruiting for multiple years. Just think about the multiple different touch points you have with them, whether that's conversations, text messages, Zooms because of COVID at the time, going to games. You know, I benefited with Derek given that, my stepson Xzayvier Brown and Derek played AAU together, so a lot of times I was at practices or tournaments that, generally speaking, assistant coaches aren't allowed to do some of that stuff, just given the recruiting rules. So, when Derek decided to transfer, I think, not only myself, but Coach Lang and his familiarity with St. Joseph's men basketball program, it was a pretty in-depth relationship where, there wasn't much that Derek needed to learn, about us as people. Now I learn a little bit more about, style of play and the roster and things of that nature. But in terms of, just the connection, it was kind of like automatic.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to kind of recruiting a little bit, ever since Coach Lang's taken over, uh, you guys have really built relationships and absolutely crushed recruiting in the city of Philadelphia itself in particular, which obviously we talk about a lot on this podcast. And the Big Five is really, really important to keep players in your own backyard. So, how important is that for you to get local talent, and how have you guys been so successful doing so?
I mean, it's of the utmost important, honestly, and I think we've been successful because of the intentionality. If you go back to Coach Lang's initial press conference when he was hired, he talked about, we're going to start with homegrown talent, and then secondly, we're going to kind of recruit the I-95 corridor from, New York down to Northern Virginia, all through DMV and New Jersey. And, we're going to try to add some international talent as well. So, but it starts with the homegrown guys. If you look at the success of St. Joe's University, it's been with, for the most part, the best players have come from the area. So, and the area has a lot of talent. So, that's where a lot of our connections and relationships are. So, it's of the utmost important. We try to recruit some of the best guys in the area, and I think when you have multiple guys from the area on your team, it helps with other guys because they all know each other. They play against each other. Some of them play AAU together, some of them play together, and it helps with the fan base, in terms of, their families and friends and, people close to them that want to come out and support. So, when we bring kids up to games, if things have continued to progress for us, they see a lot of familiar faces, not just our players, but people in the crowd, so it's going to continue to be, what's most important to us is taking care of, recruiting local guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, all right, fast forward into this season now. Obviously, last season, great year. You guys made it all the way to the A10 semifinals. Had some players leave, but one player in particular came back for his senior season, and that was Eric Reynolds II. Obviously, one of the favorites, I think, early on here. Obviously, we're still in the offseason, but for the A10 player of the year, he's a
Mhm.
baller. We know he's a baller. Uh, Staying at those, which, high major schools he maybe could have gone to. He's staying put where he is. What does that say about his character, and what does it say about, you guys making sure that he stayed put for this next upcoming season?
It's crazy, man. Like a lot of people with Eric just wanted to create their own narratives. They see him killing hair and it's like, he's leaving. Like Eric never had any intentions to leave, ever. Like that's just like, the public and people that don't even know him putting stuff out there. So, for us, it was never surprising, but, and it's not surprising because you know who he is as a kid. You, or a young man, his family, what they value, his goals and aspirations and how he thinks he's going to, get there and obtain some of the things that he's aspiring to do, and like Eric's competitive. Like Eric wants to like win at a really high level at St. Joe's. And he also, wants to be the all-time leading scorer in school history, which, he's on pace to come close, if not beat it. Jameer Nelson's record. So, it was never a surprise to us, but again, it speaks to his character. He's loyal, he's relational. Him and Coach Lang have a great relationship. Um, he trusts us with his development. He trusts the feedback that we continue to go out and get to help him understand what he needs to work on and improve upon and show, for him to ultimately get to the highest level that he's aspiring to do.
So, Coach, I like what you said there because I think people in the local area around here like definitely agree with exactly what you're saying that he didn't want to leave. Because I remember a couple years ago, I think it was 2 seasons ago on a broadcast, I heard that they said Coach Lang and basically said about Eric, like he's not afraid of the rebuild we're doing here. He's not afraid that he came in with me when Coach Lang had taken over the program. I think that's exactly what you're saying is outside people that
Right.
probably don't follow Philly hoops as closely. Like they just see anybody pop off in a smaller league or a mid-major league and just assume they're leaving. But the whole
Exactly.
time, like even if he didn't put out a Twitter post saying that he was going to come back, I think everybody. I mean, I certainly agree with you saying that because he's not a. I thought that was so telling about him is that he's not afraid of being at a new program and he like definitely wants
Hmm.
to build this and stay with you guys. So I think logically, after we talk about Eric Reynolds, logically you think the next step is we're going to talk about your stepson Xzayvier Brown with the year he had, but we're
Right.
going to talk about him a little bit later. One of my favorite players in the Big Five is Rasheer Fleming,
No
who
doubt.
just the camp he was at. I saw that you tweeted about today. He just got an award at the camp that him and Eric were at.
Yep.
Ever since the first time I saw him play on Hawk Hill, that game against Houston, down in Annapolis. I
Yep.
mean, he as a freshman, you could argue he was the best player in the court in the second half against the Houston team that put two guys in the first round that year.
Hmm.
But with how much better he got last year, and then he went through the pro process.
Yep.
How big of a leap can he make in his junior season as he now becomes a veteran on this team?
Yeah, no doubt.
But what how like remarkable is his versatility? You can play him as a small ball five when there's been injuries. He can play with the center. Like he he just does so much so well.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, phenomenal talent, and he's young too. A lot of people don't know that. Rasheer, by date of birth, like he should be entering sophomore year, not his junior year. But it starts with who he is as a person. Ultra humble, so much humility. Is always trying to get better. Lives in the gym, and he just listens, and he wants to get better. So it starts there. And then he's got some physical gifts. He's got a 7'5" wingspan. you know,
Can't teach that.
yeah, yeah, he can shoot the three, at 6'9". He's developed into an amazing pick and roll player, both, popping or putting pressure on the defense to what you alluded to is small ball five and rolling and catching lobs and things of that nature. He's an amazing offensive rebounder. He's got a tremendous knack for the ball and a quick second jump, and he's competitive. And then with that 7'5" wingspan, he blocks a lot of shots. I've never seen somebody block so many jump shots. But I think it all comes back to just who he is as a person, and how he was raised and how hard he works. His work ethic is tremendous. I do think going through the pro prospect was really great for him, just to be in those workouts with other guys, see some of the things that he needs to improve upon for him to also, get feedback that was relatively consistent so he can kind of have a plan of attack and focus to go out and say, I got to improve in X, Y, Z. Rasheer's, prime, I don't want to say have a breakout season because he had a really good 2 seasons for us. He's not a breakout player, but I do think, he's primed to just take his game to another level.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think he's got the physical gifts you bring up, and his ability to shoot the three and block as many shots. Like, yeah, he certainly has a pro game. And last year, I mean, he really was. I mean, he's been great the 2 years, like you said, but last year I think like you saw how good he was the first year, and it was good to see
Uh-huh.
him take another step forward with how good he was. So Speaking on a couple guys who hopefully can take another step forward after spending one season on Hawk Hill last year, I want to touch on some of your other returners. I think we
Yep.
kind of know what your starting five is going to look like for the most part with some of your guys that are coming back and some of your transfers coming in. But how about guys like Anthony Finkley, Sean Simmons, and then Desir Haskins, who ended up redshirting last year? Like
Yep.
some of these guys who it was their first season in a reserve role, like playing time hopefully going to increase for these guys as they get another year older and then some freshmen come in behind them. But with that youth coming up with the freshmen you have now, like which one of these guys do you think can emerge now that they've had a year under their belt and hopefully get a couple more minutes and be a contributor?
Man, honestly, I think all three of them. And it's going to be in different ways. I think Desir is going to surprise a lot of people with just his level of skill. I think at Camden High with their star-studded crew, and New Jersey Scholars where he played AAU, how loaded they were. Desir was more of a catch and shoot guy, but what I've come to learn being around him for the past, 16, 18 months is that he can do a lot more than that. He's a really good passer. He can drive, he can get to the basket, and he's crafty. So I think Desir is going to surprise a lot of people just because they didn't see him last year. And the last thing they saw of him was at Camden, and it was more of a spot up shooter, that kind of played off some of those other, prominent guys. So, but Anthony and Sean, they both, played meaningful minutes for us last year, and both, had some really good games and some games that weren't so great, up and down, typical, freshman seasons, but the thing I like to say about both of them is that they've worked since the season ended. Anthony body looks tremendous. He's in great physical shape. Same thing with Sean, so their motors are higher, and I think their conditioning is much better, which is just going to allow them to, play at a higher pace and be able to affect the game in different ways. I think with both of them, they have to continue to improve as shooters, particularly in our style of play, but Sean's toughness, his rebounding, his lob catching, his defense, just his energy. Sean's energy is contagious. The one thing I love about Sean is just, he's not afraid to do the dirty work. He's always talking. He takes practice to a higher level with his competitive motor and competitive spirit. And then Anthony's skill, his ability to pass, his ability to get a rebound and push, his ability to, just make plays at his size that you're not accustomed to seeing, So, for those guys, it's just about continuing to focus on the work, and just have trust in our staff and our development and know that, if they continue to just stay locked in and stay in the gym, that, they're just going to get better.
Kyle, I'm going to kick it to you for the next two, but Coach, I do want to say this. Desir Haskins intrigues me a lot, and I'm glad that you touched on that because I think the year that he spent, I think you're absolutely right that like you haven't seen him play in a while, but he's like the most intriguing like of these bench guys for me because I'm just excited to see like what he can do, and I think his
And the other
size and
thing,
shooting is good.
yeah, and the red shirt year was great for him. He got to handle the ball on the second team a lot in practice. Scout team, he got to be the best players on the opposing team, best perimeter player at least a lot of times. And then, just from a body development standpoint, I think he might be up like 15, 18 pounds from when he first arrived here. Like you see it in his chest, his shoulders, his arms. And, he's a confident kid to begin with, so when you just add, those elements and level of, gains, in his game and also his body, I think Desir is poised to surprise, a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've talked about him before, especially when you guys were recruiting him, that he's got the tools. He's got the tools to be an incredible player. I think the red shirt was probably a really good thing for him, like you said. Was able to get into a college gym for a year, get to be on the scout team, be the other team's best players, like you just mentioned. So we're very, very excited to see year one on Hawk Hill. Oh, year one playing on Hawk Hill.
Playing, right.
Yes, exactly. All right, Coach, we're gonna take you off the sideline and onto the court for a second, and we're gonna kind of go through some practice things here and some X's and O's here we want to ask you about. So, uh, in particular, Cope, I know you want to ask one thing in particular. I want to get to something else first too. Kind of going through some situational things and whatnot. The one I think major talking point in college basketball when you get to late in the game and a team is up three is it, do you foul the other team or not? So, Coach, your opinion, is it better to foul a team up three and send them to the line at the end of the game, or do you let them take a chance?
Um, I go back and forth. You know, we have some beliefs here at St. Joe's that I don't know if I want to share publicly.
That's perfectly okay.
But like, I think there's a few factors. One, how much time is left, right? Secondly, where's the ball? Is it on the sideline? Is it going the length of the court? Is the baseline out? Is it coming out of a timeout? Is it after a free throw? Things of that nature. But I think the time association is key, because you say 15 seconds left, you foul up three, then now you're forcing your team to make more plays. You got to inbound the ball against press. You got to make free throws, then you might have to do it again. So like I think it comes down to, in my opinion, like just basically the time. So if there's a situation where this might be the team's last offensive possession, then absolutely, like, let's do it. Are they inbounding it on the side out? Like a lot of people like to run that Brad Stevens play where they throw it
Yeah,
in and then they flare on the
the
weak
corner.
side. Like, well, they threw it inside the 3-point line. So just foul the guy. Like, don't even let them get the three off. So I think it's situational. You know, um, when I was a D3 head coach at Arcadium, I fouled up three one time for the first time and wound up losing the game. So, I was a little scarred by it. But,
Yeah,
as time has progressed and, you just study the game more and you learn more about those situations because we're constantly talking about them in our program and studying situations where it happens. I think there's a time and a place for it. And I think there's other times where it's like, yo, just get a stop.
yeah,
So, Coach, I'm glad you said the word situation because if you go to the St. Joe's website and you read your
Hmm.
bio, one
Yep.
of the first things you see is that you are the program's guy for situational excellence when it
Right.
comes to, a situation you might have to foul up three. But I wanted to ask you, and the way I phrase it, I'm not asking for you to give me your playbook during practice because obviously I don't want you to do that. But like
Yep.
when it comes to practicing almost like special teams in football, like
Yep.
how much of an emphasis do you guys spend on a daily basis in practice going over this type of stuff?
Oh, a ton, man. A ton. I do think our team, whether we execute or get the results, I think our team's always prepared for these situations because one, how much it's important to Coach Lang. So like, we're study. Like we watch a lot of film. Like one thing me and Coach Lang do, around September leading up to the start is every year we have our video coordinator cut up you know, anywhere from like 15 to 25 random conference tournaments or NCAA tournament close games at all levels, and we'll watch together like the last 3 to 4 minutes of the games. And like, we're constantly talking about what would we do if we were in this situation? What would we run? What would we do on defense? So one, we're study, so that's one. Two, we work on it every day. We have a saying in our program, win the 80. So a college basketball game is 40 minutes in terms of game time. Then you watch a college basketball game, it's normally a 2-hour block, right? So there's an additional 80 minutes that go on where like the clock's not running, whether that's a timeout, whether that's adjustment at halftime, after a free throw, rebounding free throws, all that stuff is situational to us. That's why we call it situational excellence. And we want to be excellent in those moments. And we always talk to our guys about like, we got to win the 80, so there's generally around 70, 80 possessions a game that happen when the clock's not running. And like most teams that win those possessions are in good shape to win the game. So we spend a lot of time on it, man. To answer your question, we spend a lot of time on it. I think we that's one of the things that I've learned a ton from Coach Lang. Coming to St. Joe's was just like the attention to detail when it comes to situations and like how to be excellent and prep your guys to like not be nervous in those moments. It could be like a play at the end of the game on the side out of a timeout. The players know what we're going to do. Like we're not drawing anything up on the fly because like we've rehearsed this almost daily for months. Like you might draw it up just to remind them, but like it's something they've seen before. It's not something new. And then I can name countless other situations that might occur, in the last few moments of a game that, I think our guys are, they know what to expect when a situation arises.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Kyle, go ahead with your question. But it's interesting to me how that can almost be like, if you look at it like football, like that can be like your special
Yeah,
teams.
no
But
doubt.
it's those plays that like that can ultimately decide it for you. That's interesting though that you bring that up because with TV timeouts and timeouts and stuff like you are sitting down for a 2 hour experience, not just 40 minutes.
Yeah, no doubt. Mhm.
Exactly. And a quote that my dad always says is, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you guys are planning ahead, and I love that. All right. One thing I definitely want to touch on is rules. Is there any rules in college basketball that you'd like to see changed or modified? And for example, and this might hurt to bring up, but creased against VCU in the A10 semis last year. He got hurt at the free throw line. Ball went from a side out to a baseline. If you remember that, like, is that a particular rule that you would want to change, or is there any other rules in particular that you would want to see college basketball maybe uh, upgrade?
Yeah, I don't know if I exactly remember the play you're talking about, so I can't like necessarily speak on that rule. Like normally, whether it goes under or side is predicated on where the stop and play happens, where the ball placement is when it stops. And generally, like it's on a foul, anything like that's deflected or kicked or blocked where it goes out of bounds, you take it at that spot. So I don't necessarily know that which exact play you're referring to say if that was something I would like change. I go back and forth on the advancement of the ball in like the last minute. Um, the women's game advances the ball. NBA does it. I feel like when we're losing, I want to advance, but when we're winning, I'm like, nah,
Yeah,
keep that
keep
ball
it
the
back there.
same.
Yeah.
So I would probably keep that the same because it does reward the team a lot of times that's losing. You know, let me think. Rule. I wouldn't mind seeing the FIBA rule with the like you could take the ball off the rim.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
I
we
you
just saw that
know,
all the Olympics too. That's
yeah,
a great one.
it's a lot of high level athletes in college basketball. I do think that would make the game a lot more exciting. You know, I go back and forth on quarters versus halves. I actually was on the rules committee, the NCAA rules committee, I think for 3 or 4 years. So I sat in a lot of those meetings, during my tenure on the committee, and I understand why they haven't adopted that more because like the advertisement, blocks with TV, just makes it impossible to get all their advertisement in. Um, nah, I love the college game, man. I love the college game. A lot of people want to widen the paint. I'm fine with just how it is. Um, yeah, I can't think of any, honestly.
This is a
This
safe space, by the way. You're not going to get
this is a
fined.
safe
We're not going
space.
to make
Yeah.
sure we show anybody and you get in trouble for it. But you might have been reading our script because I did want to ask you about halves to quarters. I'm sure that's a lot of you already answered it, and I think that would be more stress on your part with the whole situation thing. And now you have more opportunities where you're going to need to plan for an
Hmm.
end of quarter, potentially last possession. So last question on this block before we move to our next one, and I know this isn't the level you're at, but do you feel as strongly as I do about high school basketball adding a shot clock? I just think it'd be better for the high school kids to better acclimate to when they do play in college. You have a strong
Uh,
feeling on that?
yeah, 100%. And some states have it.
Yeah.
Some states definitely have it. I mean, it'd be great to have it in all states so it's uniform, and I just think it helps with the quality of games. Um, I hate when I go to a high school game and the team gets up 7, 8 points and then a stall ball, but yeah, high school, I think it should be uniform across the country. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, and
We
I think like the one
definitely.
example that I probably popped to this question for us, Cope, was the Catholic League Championship this year. I think it was the women specifically, but uh I forget which, but they were winning and they were just holding ball. But it was like a minute and 10 seconds left in the game, and they're just trying to pass it back and forth behind the 3-point line. And it's like, can we do something? And then the men's team too. It's not just, it's all high school college basketball and PA, but it's like when teams get up at 7 or 8 points, maybe it's even closer than that, maybe it's 4 or 5, and they're just holding the ball with 90 seconds left or a little less. It's like it's killer. It's killer. So I'm glad you feel similar thoughts to us
Yeah.
about that.
Okay.
All right. So a topic that we briefly mentioned earlier, but we definitely want to bring up, and that would be your stepson, Xavier Brown. And speaking of the Catholic League Championship, he did hit an all-time shot a couple years ago
Mhm.
that won Rome in the game, his senior year of high school. I'm sure you remember it very, very well. Uh, what are your thoughts going through your head when he banks in that three, send the game back to overtime after they came all the way back, and just your thoughts on the Catholic League in general and his time there?
Well, on the shot, like, at the moment I was dad, like, up cheering, jumping around, didn't surprise me, just from watching him play so many years, seeing different clutch performances. And I also thought was like, it's no chance they lose this game once it got to overtime. You know, um, the Catholic League is it's amazing, man. It's nothing like it. You know, um, just the pride, the level of talent, the coaching, and then how it all culminates at the Palestra, for the Final Four. It's nothing like it, man. It's nothing like it. We're actually playing Virginia Tech this year in the Palestra against another former Catholic League champ, Fade Miller. So, it'd be pretty cool getting Fade back to Philly for that game, and then us having guys like, X, Anthony Finkley, Kafik Myers, some other, Philly Catholic League guys. I think it's going to be, pretty cool. But it's an amazing league, really good coaches, really good players. It was dope to see X, grow up in it and play, at the famed Roman program and being able to have that moment to where like he's probably always going to be talked about, not just in the Catholic League, not just at Roman, but in the Catholic League in the city is like, you know, one of the most memorable moments.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And Kyle, let me touch on this last one here.
Go for it.
So my dad's a Roman alum. I was sitting at the game. I was like a couple rows back. It was John Griffin and Billy sitting like couple. They were sitting on the floor right in front of me. But like just to see that moment, like his college coaches are there. Like the place is going nuts when he hits the shot. It
Yeah.
was like deafening loud in there. It was pretty incredible. But we also got to ask you about the season that Xavier just had.
Yep.
For St. Joe's player to win A10 Rookie of the Year or Conference Rookie of the Year, looked so comfortable right away. He
Hmm.
was so comfortable, so confident. Just never seemed like he was rattled or the moment was too big for him. So if there's anybody that would know better, it's you. Did you see this coming? Did you think he was going to step foot on campus right away and be this good and start lighting up the league?
Honestly, I did. I mean, I wasn't like outward about saying it, but like, I mean, he's my son. Like, a lot of things that he does doesn't surprise me because I see it all the time. Not just even on the basketball court. Like you just see like things he does. Like, and I've been in the gym with him, almost daily for years, talking 7, 8 years, leading into, his start at St. Joe's. So, like a lot of people were surprised by how well he shot the ball. I'm in there rebounding for him and putting him through some of the drills, and he's always shot the ball well. So, like, it didn't surprise me. I think in high school, he didn't get a lot of shots, like, kick out, catch and shoot shots because you just didn't have a lot of guys creating for him. He was a lot of times the person creating, for other people. Most of his shots kind of came off the dribble in high school. So, the one thing I was, kind of, um, I don't want to say surprised, but I was like, I'm curious to see how well he's going to finish like in college with, just consistent bigger guys and shot blockers. Like, because in high school and all his life, like he just always got to the basket and like finished, and he showed like that's just what he does. Can he finish better? Yeah, absolutely. But I think the biggest thing for him was he just was the strength, the strength that he was able to add allowed him to like, compete at such a high level. Skill was always there. The mind for the game was always there. The work ethic was there, just transitioning from high school to college, the improvements he made on his body, I think allowed him to, mesh the skill with the, IQ and all those things and be able to put it together in a special freshman season.
And yeah, it absolutely was one of the best freshman seasons in the Big Five in probably a very long time off the top of my head. So speaking of that, we're the Big Five pod. Got to ask you about the new format of the Big Five and the three games that you played that culminated in you guys going down to the Wells Fargo Center and winning. But one game I got to ask you about in particular, I was there. You go into Villanova, you beat Villanova in the Fin for the first time in a very long time. And if that wasn't Xavier's coming out party, if people didn't know who he was by then, they certainly did after that game.
Right.
So to be able to go into Finneran Pavilion in a Big Five game against a ranked team, how good did that feel? That it was the first year of this, you go in, you beat a ranked team, but just the fact that you had that many St. Joe's fans behind us in the media section, and you
Yep.
go in and beat a ranked team and Villanova at that for the first time in a very long time.
Yeah, it was dope, man, especially for our players, just given where, the program was when we first got to St. Joe's and how it's just continued to progress. That was kind of like a culminating moment to show that, like, we got the right kids, our development program that we have in place is clearly working and guys are getting better, and things are just moving in the right direction. So, honestly, we weren't surprised. We thought we had a really good team. Like a week before that, we thought we should have won a game at Kentucky, where we missed a free throw that could have potentially won it. So, and we have seen our players, in high school and on the AAU scene compete against a lot of these guys at these, higher level programs per conference. So, and compete well. So, no, it wasn't surprising, but it was dope. It definitely was dope. Like, don't let me try to downplay the moment because that's not the case at all. But it was really dope for our guys more than anything, just to see, the joy on the bench and, the brotherhood and, how they were just enjoying, playing for one another. You see a guy like Cam Brown in his fifth year, who's in his fifth game against Villanova. We played them tough his freshman year here. Then we played them, tough the previous year, at our place when they had Cam Whitmore and they wound up pulling away down the stretch. But, to see us be able to like, kind of like control the game the entire second half, and like not necessarily let it get close, I think was just a great, moment for our guys in our program. And it lets us know that, things are definitely going in the right direction.
100%. And just a huge, huge game from a Big Five perspective, too. Obviously, that's one of the games that helped lead you to the Big Five title game against Temple and ultimately you guys winning that title as well. And speaking of that, like Big Five format changed this past year with the Big Five Classic at the Wells Fargo Center. Before that, it was just like a round robin of all the Big Five teams. How do you feel about the new format, and are you looking forward to continuing it this year?
Yeah, I mean, I got mixed feelings. I like the fact that the triple header at the Wells Fargo. I think that's big time. That's awesome. But like we didn't play Drexel last year, who was just at it. I mean, but like, you just never know how it's going to shake up. You might not necessarily get a game that, your fan base and your players like look forward to. After this year, they're going to flip the pods and we don't know who pod we're going to be in and who we're going to play. We know we're always going to be opposite of LaSalle just because of the conference affiliation. But it'd be nice to just know that you were playing all those teams. But I think it's a great trade-off having the triple header down at the Wells Fargo and getting all those schools in the building on the same day. It's cool, just for Philly hoops. I remember looking in the stands and seeing, a lot of high school kids, a lot of former players from, all the different Big Five schools. And like, I just think it's a great day for basketball for the city.
Yeah. I mean, we constantly refer to it as our Super Bowl. So it's definitely a great thing that they did. And we also had mixed feelings about it at first, especially with we felt the games probably should have been at the Palestra just because of the history there. Obviously, Wells Fargo is a lot bigger, so not mad at that. But all right, a few more Big Five questions here to finish up, excuse me, this here pod. So, better basketball player as a rising college sophomore, Xavier Brown or Justin Scott?
Ah, that's not even close. Xzayvier Brown.
You had to put that one in there, coach.
Yeah. Just had to throw it in there. So I have one for you, Coach. You've been a head coach at the D3 level, so that's why I'm interested to see your answer on this. Obviously, the D1 and the D3 level. Worst away locker room you've ever been in as a coach?
The what?
The worst away locker room you've ever been in as a coach?
Oh man,
Put him on the spot.
man.
The D3 you might play. You might like D3.
Might
You
find
might be
something.
changing in like the boiler room or something.
Yeah, I mean, D3's been in classrooms. Um, I would probably say Rosemont, and
Gotcha.
it's just size.
Yeah.
It's like it's tiny, and like you're trying to gather the team around, to go over stuff on the board, pregame or halftime, and like it's just tiny. Everybody's on top of each other. It's tough to see. Like, yeah.
All right. All right. If you had to suit up as the Hawk mascot for a game, do you think you can make it the entire game in that costume?
No.
It does seem very hot in there.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of work. I don't know that I could do it.
So, Coach,
Maybe a half.
you think you get 20 minutes out of it?
I think I could do 20. Because you go to one arm.
Okay.
It's true.
I'll be
You
a
can
one
modify
arm
it.
flapper.
Okay.
Alternating.
You could alternate, man. I think I'm in the same boat. I think if you let me alternate, I could probably go 20 as well. So we started talking about how you're recruiting in the city and everything, recruiting wise. What is your best recruiting story?
Best recruiting story. I would probably say Daquan Davis, another Roman grad. Um, Daquan, was under recruited. He definitely was a scholarship level player, whether that was, Division II or maybe low Division I, and he just didn't necessarily never like reach that, but I went to see him play one time at the Chosen League when it was outside at 10th and Alley at Sheer Shore Playground. I think Mike Jensen might have wrote about this one time. And he immediately called me afterwards, like, hey, Coach Scott, like, I ain't know everybody in the hood knew you like that. And like, he wasn't ready to like come to Arcadia at this point because this was going into a senior year, but I think it just flipped his mind for like, the openness to like the relationship with me and like just getting to learn more about me and Arcadia and the program. And, it took a long time, because Daquan, wanted to play at a higher level, and rightfully so, all Catholic player, you know, and we wound up getting him, and, he was rookie of the year as a freshman, His sophomore year, he was player of the year and led us to the NCAA tournament and conference championship, both first in school history, and then fast forward, he wound up being a Division III All-American. I didn't necessarily get to coach him through those years. I only coached him at the first two because I wound up coming to St. Joe's. And then, fast forward, he was wound up playing Division I at the University of Albany, and then he played overseas this past year. So, you know, just to see, his growth as a player, as a man, and the fact that like he just tore D3 up in the manner that he did, it was like, this is why you try to recruit these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Very impressive. All
Yeah.
right. Last one here, and it's one that we ask all of our guests that come on, especially for you being a Philadelphia native, though. Justin Scott, where do you get your cheesesteaks?
I like Delisandro's. Now the wait has become a little tedious, so, and I don't live too far from the school, so like, Larry's has grown on me, but if I had to go get a cheesesteak, it's going to be from Delisandro's, and it's going to be chicken too.
Okay. Not
Okay.
mad at that. I used to hate on chicken cheesesteaks for a while just because like they weren't the traditional thing, but they're really good.
Yeah, no doubt.
They're very,
Better
very
for your
good.
health too, man.
A lot better for your health. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Coach, thank you so, so much for coming on. We very much appreciate you spending some time with us on here, chopping it up, talking some basketball. Cope, any final thoughts for Coach before we get off?
Coach, good luck to you. Guys are going to be back on campus. What is it, this week or next week?
Monday,
Guys
a week
back.
from today, Monday.
Okay.
It
And then
starts on
schools.
this upcoming Monday, the 26th, I believe.
Okay.
Yep,
Well, hey,
26th.
you're gonna be right in it then, right in the middle of the season. So good luck to you. We're definitely looking forward to getting to Hagan Arena for a couple games,
Appreciate
and
you.
following along with you guys.
Awesome, brother.
Absolutely. Coach, thank you
Thanks for
so much
having me.
again. We're very
Yep,
excited for you this season and best of luck.
appreciate it.